In Hollywood, some roles are written for anyone, but others are written specifically for you. Julianne Moore had one of the latter, a dark, cerebral Netflix limited series called The Orchard, penned by an award-winning female playwright, directed by a celebrated favorite, and crafted entirely around her. Not just any Julianne, not veteran redhead actress Julianne Moore. The script had her name in the margins from the very first draft. This wasn't a pitch, it was a gift. But 2 weeks after Netflix greenlit early development, Blake Lively showed up at a charity gala, not with a speech or a cause, but with a printed copy of the script. A producer close to Blake's team said she went around pitching herself like it was her project, claiming, "I know the story's mature, but I could make it relevant," as if she were rewriting Julianne's career on cocktail napkins. People laughed, until 2 days later, a page of the script leaked to Julianne, and instead of her name, Blake's appeared in the margins. A handwritten note read, "Needs younger edge. Ask Ryan if he can tweak the tone." Julianne didn't react immediately. Every deleted tweet, fake statement, and PR cover-up takes hours to decode, and she knew patience was the only strategy. She didn't freak out, tweet, or call her agent screaming. In Hollywood, the season know you don't chase ghosts. You wait for them to reveal themselves. This one appeared in the form of a polite email. "Hi, Julianne. Just wanted to flag a potential scheduling issue on The Orchard. We hear you might be tied to a late Q4 project which could affect our ideal timeline." Julianne blinked. Her calendar was wide open. No Q4 project, nothing booked. So she did what few would dare. She called the showrunner directly, the woman who'd written the role for her. The answer was unsettling. "Honestly, I was told you were stepping back." "From what?" Julianne asked. "From the tone. That it wasn't your kind of story anymore. And Blake's name keeps coming up in meetings." Suddenly, the words refresh, tone shift, and younger demo made chilling sense. She wasn't busy. She was being phased out quietly. Blake was coming. There was no dramatic showdown, no tabloid leak, no frantic agent scrambling. Julianne found out when an assistant forwarded her a PDF, something studios send internally before a green light, but this one wasn't official. It was a pitch, a revised vision of The Orchard, and in bold letters under the header, "Starring Blake Lively, a new chapter in prestige drama." Julianne scrolled through the pages, stunned. What was supposed to be her signature role was being rewritten for someone else, politely, quietly, and with industry euphemisms masking a career shove. The gala, the email, the pitch, all of it pointed to a larger pattern in Hollywood. The way evolution and refreshing the tone are often used as polite covers for phasing out seasoned talent in favor of younger faces. For Julianne, this wasn't just a lost role. It was a lesson in the subtle power plays that shape careers behind closed doors. No one screamed. No one leaked. The industry doesn't announce theft. It rewrites it in soft, polite language, leaving the original artist to realize after the fact that their place in the story has quietly been replaced. Julianne's response? Quiet, controlled, and deliberate. She understood the system. She didn't need to react publicly. She watched, she assessed, and she waited for the right moment to reclaim her space, because in Hollywood, the game is rarely about confrontation. It's about endurance, presence, and knowing when to act. The Orchard was supposed to be hers, but the unfolding of events revealed much more. The invisible negotiations, the whispers in meetings, the way talent can be sidelined under the guise of refreshing a story. Julianne scrolled through the pitch again, calm but resolute, the weight of experience sharpening every observation. In that moment, she saw the invisible architecture of power and influence, and how easily even a role written for you can be quietly rewritten for someone else. The role originally meant for Julianne Moore was quietly reevaluated, and though Blake Lively's name was never officially mentioned, everyone heard it in the subtext. Within an hour, Twitter erupted. Ryan Reynolds, on record, said, "Legacy roles can change over time," which struck many as ironic from a man whose brand rarely strays from the same smirking persona. The top comment read, "He replaced a literal legend with his wife like it's a PDA bake sale." Just 36 minutes after the podcast aired, YouTube comments exploded with a line that would spread like wildfire. "You can't erase a performance that hasn't even happened yet." No one knew its source until Julianne's stylist quote tweeted it with one word: "Yet." She didn't tag anyone, didn't need to. Blake posted a black and white selfie that night with the caption, "Stay graceful even when they lie." The audience, however, wasn't buying it. They'd seen patterns before with Emma and Megan, and now Julianne. Julianne stayed silent. No posts, no statements, no clapping back. But behind the scenes, the storm was brewing. Variety reported that multiple insiders confirmed Julianne hadn't been replaced. Executives at Lion Studios had called her with a counteroffer. The tweet had no screenshots, no attachments, just 280 characters, and chaos ensued. Fans and media scrambled. What did Blake cut? Did the studio backtrack? Who leaked it? Surprisingly, the studio didn't deny the story, and Julianne liked the tweet. Insiders confirmed she received an alternative pitch that morning, putting her back at the table. Meanwhile, a production assistant posted and quickly deleted a blurry photo of a casting whiteboard. It wasn't official confirmation, but it was close enough to spark speculation. Once the press senses power shifting, coverage changes. By the next morning, an article made it clear. Sometimes the story behind the casting matters more than the casting itself. No mention of Blake, no attack, just a signal that Julianne's influence wasn't fading. The story wasn't explosive all at once. It unfolded piece by piece. Blake posted her cryptic, "No bad vibes" quotes while Julianne stayed silent, letting her legacy speak. Attention began shifting to Ryan Reynolds. A production blogger with a reputation for exposing leaks noted that a pitch deck was circulating with writing unmistakably his. Someone leaked a page that included lines like, "Proposed role transition. Refresh the lead character by repositioning toward a more aspirational archetype. Leverage Blake Lively's established brand equity." Suddenly, the narrative changed. The studio had been denying Blake was being positioned for the role, but the leaked materials told another story. It was a clear signal of behind-the-scenes maneuvering, a strategic pivot in casting, branding, and perception. And the audience, who had been tracking every subtle clue, now understood. Julianne's silence, Blake's public messaging, and Ryan's fingerprints all intersected in a high-stakes chess game that revealed how Hollywood quietly maneuvers legacy roles while testing the waters of public reaction. Julianne's counteroffer wasn't just a negotiation, it was a statement. The studio recognized her value, and the public saw the power of patience, poise, and legacy. While Blake's brand remained in the conversation, it was clear. Legacy queens like Julianne Moore don't need to shout. They wait, observe, and let the game reveal itself, one carefully orchestrated move at a time. The replacement chatter wasn't random. Ryan Reynolds was quietly pitching his wife as a more aspirational version of Julianne Moore. The backlash was immediate but strangely muted. A producer on a podcast the next morning summed it up perfectly. It wasn't even the pitch itself, it was the language used. That phrasing, those buzzwords, it was the wrong way to talk about a woman who had literally built Hollywood credibility. Then came the cherry on top. A screenwriter from the original version of The Orchard tweeted anonymously, hinting at what many had feared. Years of crafting a role for Julianne were suddenly reduced to a PowerPoint slide, a reposition plan, a branding exercise. Nothing screams panic like trying to distill decades of experience into 12-point calibri. Fans began to understand this wasn't just career sabotage, it was a branding operation that was spiraling out of control. Initially, Blake's team tried to spin it. No official statements, no public pushback, just the usual cryptic quotes about trust, evolution, and artistic growth. But in Hollywood, once a leak hits the writers, it rarely stays contained. On May 11th, someone inside Blake's orbit slipped. Not a PR person, not a manager, but a stylist's assistant. She posted a 5-second story clip from her archive labeled The Orchard Reposition Plan V3 with a caption, "The problem with branding is, you always leave a trail." The blurry clip showed a desktop preview of mood boards. One thumbnail featured Blake in costume beside a board reading, "Elegance meets disruption, a modern woman reclaiming rural America." But the kicker was a chat bubble below. "If Julianne walks, Florence can step in." The plan was clear, Blake had a backup, and Florence Pugh is already being floated as a potential replacement. Insiders confirmed that Florence had been modeled as Plan B if the Julianne Moore swap failed. Fans immediately caught on. A fan page tweeted, "Not Florence being the ace up Blake's sleeve and possibly pulling the rug out from under her." Florence herself reacted subtly but unmistakably, liking a tweet saying, "There's always a second draft. Doesn't mean you ever print it." The narrative shifted. Blake was now flanked from both sides, the actress she tried to erase and the one she underestimated. It was no longer casting drama. It had evolved into a full-blown whisper war. BY May 13th, just as the Florence chaos peaked, the game changed. Julianne Moore called a meeting, not through her agents, not through lawyers, but in person on the studio lot. Hair pulled back, gray blazer, no glam. She walked in and immediately took control. Her first words, "If you think this film is going forward without clarity, this was more than a power move. It was a statement." Julianne was reclaiming her role, asserting authority, and making it clear that neither buzzwords nor strategic refreshes could rewrite her legacy. Blake's team, Ryan's plan, the shadow of Florence Pugh, it all collided under one undeniable truth. Talent, tenure, and presence still carry weight in Hollywood. The story was no longer about speculation. It was a lesson in legacy, control, and how quietly decisive action can outmaneuver even the most meticulously plotted career plays. The unfolding saga revealed that behind every PR-friendly narrative lies a network of subtle power plays, strategic backups, and unseen maneuvers. Julianne's measured silence and decisive move reminded everyone watching. In Hollywood, patience, poise, and precision still trump branding buzz, no matter how high-profile the interference. The Orchard was no longer just a project. It was a battlefield of legacy versus ambition, and Julianne Moore had firmly planted her flag. Everyone in the room knew exactly what Julianne meant when she said, "You're mistaken." Blake's silence wasn't protection anymore. It was a glaring red flag. Ryan Reynolds wasn't on the call, but his influence hovered over every slide, every deck, every decision. Julianne methodically walked the producers through the original pitch, the one written for her. Not the flashy rebrand Blake had tried to sell, but the authentic story of an aging matriarch grappling with her daughter's fame, power, and betrayal. Then Julianne did the unexpected. She showed receipts. Private emails, early notes, and even a voice message from the screenwriter left weeks earlier. "I don't know how Blake got this version. I never sent it. This was draft 2. I didn't even sign off on the visuals used," she said calmly but firmly. Then she added, "I will not participate in a version of this story that was stolen, reshaped, and force-fed to the press. Move forward without me, and trust me, that comes with consequences." No yelling, no tears, just fact. By day's end, 3 producers had already pulled out. It became obvious someone else was steering the project, and it wasn't the original team. Blake wasn't orchestrating a secret takeover anymore. She was at the center of a public collapse. The ironic twist? She hadn't even spoken a word. Julianne didn't need a press expose. She was the expose. By evening, Julianne had officially walked off the project. Blake's team went into overdrive. Exclusive outlets, curated reels of her Oscar-buzz performances, anything to salvage the narrative. By midnight, a new headline dropped, suspiciously fast, but it flopped. Audiences weren't buying it. The messaging felt hollow, the so-called empowered lens excuse even worse. Twitter erupted, not in praise, but with shade. Blake Lively trying to steal a role written for Julianne Moore is like me trying to rewrite the Constitution with emojis. One thread summed it up perfectly. Why does every Ryan Reynolds project now smell like Blake's empowerment pitch deck? But it escalated further when someone unearthed a 2023 YouTube clip of Julianne, innocuous at the time, that now landed like a bombshell. "I've had characters written for me before, and I've also watched them get rewritten." Usually when someone newer wants to prove a point. Within hours, the quote was everywhere and Blake's name was tagged on every post. The narrative shifted. This wasn't just about a single project. It was a pattern, replacement, rebranding, hijacking, and Ryan Reynolds was at the center as her biggest enabler. That night, he posted a story, a black screen with the quote, "Sometimes you have to trust that your vision is right, even if others don't see it." It backfired instantly. Screenshots circulated with sarcastic captions, highlighting the misstep. Julianne didn't have to raise her voice. She didn't need a public meltdown. She simply walked away, taking the credibility of the project with her. Blake didn't get the role. Ryan didn't get the praise. And The Orchard? It's quietly being rewritten, but not for Blake, not for Ryan, and certainly not for press optics. Julianne's name might not dominate the headlines anymore, but her silence spoke louder than any tweet, any story, any branding campaign. For the first time, Hollywood seemed to be listening. The lesson was clear: legacy, presence, and authority cannot be stolen, only respected.